Ex-Navy SEAL Cole Mercer had survived war, loss, and years of silence after leaving the military. But nothing unsettled him more than the moment his retired K-9 partner, Ghost, suddenly froze on a foggy road outside Ashwood Creek. The old German shepherd didn't bark. He just stared into the trees. Then a tiny golden retriever puppy stepped out trembling, with a bloody woman's glove clenched between her teeth. The puppy cried whenever Cole tried to walk away. Ghost sniffed the glove once, then instantly went alert like he had sensed danger. That's when Cole realized this wasn't a lost puppy. She was trying to lead them to someone, and when the veteran and his aging K-9 finally followed her deep into Graypine Forest, they uncovered a secret that changed all of their lives forever. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me, where are you watching from today? I'd love to know how far this story can travel. Autumn arrived early in Ashwood Creek, Oregon, in the fall of 2016. Cold fog rolled across Blackstone Lake before sunrise, covering the quiet town in pale gray mist, while the forest beyond the water disappeared into silence. Cole Mercer, a 39-year-old former Special Forces soldier, walked slowly along the narrow trail beside the lake with his retired military K-9 partner. The German shepherd named Ghost moved close beside him, calm and disciplined even in old age. Years earlier, the two had survived combat overseas together. Now they lived alone in a small cabin near Graypine Forest, far away from crowded streets and noisy conversations. The mornings had become part of their routine. Cole would wake before dawn, make black coffee, then walk the trails with Ghost, while the rest of Ashwood Creek still slept. Some people in town respected him for his military service. Others simply thought he was strange. A quiet man living alone with an old K-9 always attracted stories in small towns. Cole never cared enough to correct them. The cold air that morning carried the smell of wet leaves and pine trees. Ghost walked steadily at first, though Cole noticed the old dog favoring one leg slightly. The weather always made the pain worse. "You're slowing down, old man," Cole said quietly. Ghost flicked one ear but kept moving. Cole smiled faintly. Ghost had heard that sentence many times before. They continued along the dirt path near the edge of the woods until something changed. Ghost suddenly stopped, not slowly, not cautiously, instantly. The old German shepherd froze in the middle of the trail, ears raised high, muscles tight beneath his dark fur. His eyes locked toward a patch of thick bushes ahead. Cole's expression changed immediately. In the military, Ghost had been trained to detect danger before human eyes could recognize it. Even after retirement, those instincts never disappeared. Cole scanned the trees carefully. "What is it?" Ghost didn't bark. That was what bothered Cole most. A younger dog might growl or rush forward. Ghost only became silent when something truly felt wrong. The fog drifted slowly between the trees. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then a tiny shape stepped out from the bushes, a golden retriever puppy. She looked no older than 3 months old. Her pale golden fur was soaked from the cold mist, and mud covered her paws. She trembled so hard her legs almost shook beneath her. But it wasn't the puppy herself that made Cole's chest tighten. It was the object hanging from her mouth. A woman's glove. Dark red stains covered part of the fabric. Blood. Cole immediately crouched lower. Every instinct sharpened at once. The puppy stared directly at him. Fear filled her wide brown eyes, but she didn't back away. She simply stood there, breathing fast through the fog. Ghost slowly stepped forward. The puppy flinched at first, but then remained still. Cole watched carefully as Ghost lowered his nose toward the glove. The moment the old K-9 caught the scent, his entire posture changed. His back stiffened, his ears pushed forward, and something old returned to his eyes. Cole had seen that exact look years ago in Afghanistan before ambushes, roadside bombs, and hidden gunfire. Ghost remembered danger even now. Cole rose slowly to his feet. "Easy," he whispered. The puppy suddenly walked toward him, not playfully, not curiously, purposefully. She stopped directly in front of Cole and gently dropped the glove onto the dirt path. Cole picked it up carefully. The blood had dried along the fingertips, but not completely. It was recent. Very recent. His stomach tightened. The puppy let out a soft cry. Then she looked toward Graypine Forest behind them, deep into the trees. Cole followed her gaze. Graypine Forest stretched for miles beyond Blackstone Lake, thick woods, steep hills, narrow ravines. It was easy for someone to disappear there, or get trapped there. The puppy looked back at him again and whimpered louder this time. Ghost remained frozen beside her, staring toward the woods with focused intensity. Cole felt the familiar pressure building inside his chest, the same feeling he used to get before missions went wrong. For years he had tried to leave those instincts behind, but some things never fully left a soldier. The puppy stepped closer and nudged Cole's knee with her nose. Then she turned back toward the forest again. "She wants us to follow her," Cole murmured. Ghost gave a low breath through his nose as if agreeing. Cole glanced around the empty trail, no cars, no hikers, no voices, only fog drifting between the trees and the distant sound of water against the shore. Whoever owned this puppy was nowhere nearby, and judging by the blood on the glove, that was not a good sign. The puppy suddenly grabbed the edge of Cole's jacket sleeve with tiny teeth and tugged gently, not aggressive, desperate. Cole looked down at her carefully. "You've been trained," he realized softly. The puppy released the jacket but stayed pressed close to his leg. Her coat, despite the mud and cold, was brushed and clean beneath the dirt. Her nails were trimmed. Around her neck was the faint outline where a collar had recently been removed. This wasn't a stray dog. Someone cared about her, or had cared about her very recently. Ghost slowly moved beside the puppy and lowered his head near her shoulder. For a moment, the old canine's expression softened, almost protective. The puppy immediately relaxed, slightly near him. Cole noticed it right away. Animals trusted Ghost. They always had. The fog thickened around the trail while cold wind moved through the trees. Somewhere deeper inside Graypine Forest, a branch cracked faintly. The puppy jerked her head toward the sound and cried again, this time louder. Cole's pulse quickened. His mind flashed briefly to another forest years ago, another mission. Another teammate screaming for help over the radio while Cole arrived too late to save him. He pushed the memory down hard. Not now. Ghost suddenly took several slow steps toward the woods without waiting for a command. Cole stared at the old canine. Even injured and aging, Ghost still trusted his instincts more than anything else. The puppy hurried after him immediately, stopping every few feet to make sure Cole followed. Cole looked once toward the lake behind him, then toward the forest ahead. Something terrible had happened in those woods, and somehow this trembling little golden retriever had found the only two souls in Ashwood Creek capable of understanding her fear. Cole slipped the bloody glove into his jacket pocket and exhaled slowly. "All right," he said quietly. "Show us." The puppy cried softly and disappeared into the fog beside Ghost, as the three of them moved toward the dark trees of Graypine Forest together. Break time =, 0.5 s. The fog inside Graypine Forest seemed colder than it had been near Blackstone Lake. Cole Mercer followed Ghost and the little golden retriever puppy along a narrow trail covered with wet leaves, loose stones, and broken pine needles. The world behind them faded quickly. The quiet lake, the familiar road, even the small town of Ashwood Creek seemed to disappear under the gray morning mist. Ghost moved ahead with his nose low to the ground. The old German shepherd was 8 years old, and cold weather often made his joints stiff, but now he moved like the trained military K9 he had once been. Every few steps he paused, tested the air, then pressed forward again. He was not guessing, he was tracking. The puppy stayed close to him, her small paws slipping over the damp trail. She looked too young for a forest this harsh, maybe 3 months old, with pale golden fur now soaked and muddy. Still, she refused to stop. Whenever Cole slowed down, she turned back and whimpered as if begging him to hurry. "I'm coming," Cole said softly. The puppy looked at him once, then ran after Ghost again. The trail grew steeper. Thick roots crossed the ground, and fallen branches forced Cole to climb over them carefully. The bloody glove remained tucked inside his jacket pocket, heavy in a way cloth should never feel. He kept thinking about the stains, the puppy's terror, and Ghost's reaction when he smelled it. Then Ghost stopped. Cole froze at once. The old K9 turned his head slowly and looked behind them, not at Cole past him. Cole scanned the foggy trees. Nothing moved, no voice, no footsteps, only branches swaying in the wind. But Ghost did not relax, and that worried Cole more than any sound could have. "You think someone's back there?" Cole whispered. Ghost gave a low breath through his nose, then moved forward again. A few minutes later, Cole saw fresh tire tracks in the mud near an old service road. He crouched and touched the edge of the mark. It was still soft. A truck had passed through recently, maybe less than an hour ago, before Cole could stand. An engine rumbled somewhere above the ridge. He pulled back behind a pine tree and motioned for Ghost to stay low. The puppy pressed herself against Cole's boot, trembling through the fog. A black pickup truck rolled slowly along the service road. Its windows were dark. It moved too carefully for someone simply driving through the woods. For a few seconds it stopped near the ridge, silent and watchful. Then it disappeared into the mist. Cole's jaw tightened. "That's not right." The puppy suddenly barked, sharp and frightened, then darted down a rocky slope. Ghost followed immediately. Cole hurried after them, sliding over loose gravel and grabbing branches to keep his balance. The land dropped toward Raven Cliff, a dangerous ridge locals avoided after rain. The fog thinned just enough for Cole to see the ravine below. Then he saw the bike. A mountain bike lay twisted against a large rock near a dry creek bed. One wheel was bent. The handlebar had snapped sideways, fresh scratches marked the frame, and leaves were scattered in a long, uneven line down the slope. Someone had fallen hard or been forced down. The puppy rushed past the broken bike and cried beside a cluster of stones. Cole reached her seconds later. A woman lay motionless beside the dry stream, partly covered by wet leaves. She appeared to be around 30 years old. Her jacket was torn. Blood marked one side of her forehead, and one leg rested awkwardly against the rocks. Her breathing was shallow, but it was there. The puppy pressed herself against the woman's side and whimpered, licking her hand again and again. Cole dropped to one knee. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No answer. He checked her pulse, weak, but alive. "She's alive," he said. Ghost did not come closer. Instead, the old K9 stood several feet away, watching the trees above the ravine. His body stayed tense. He was guarding them. Cole looked back at the woman and noticed her right hand. Even unconscious, she was clutching a camera tightly against her chest. It looked like professional equipment. The lens was cracked, but the body of the camera remained intact. Cole tried gently to loosen her fingers. The woman stirred and whispered, "No." Cole stopped at once. "All right. You keep it." The puppy looked up at him with frightened eyes. Cole understood then that this little dog was not lost. She belonged to this woman beneath the mud. Her fur looked cared for. Her nails were trimmed. Around her neck was a faint mark where a collar had recently been removed. A branch snapped above the ravine. Ghost's head turned sharply. Cole reached instinctively toward the knife at his belt and stared up through the fog. He saw nothing, but the feeling remained. Someone might still be nearby. The black truck, the bloody glove, the camera. This was not a simple accident. The woman groaned faintly. Cole leaned closer. "You're going to be okay," he said, though he knew promises in the wilderness were dangerous things. He carefully lifted her into his arms. She gasped softly from pain, then went limp again. The puppy panicked, jumping around his boots and crying. "She's coming with us," Cole said. "Stay close." Ghost moved first, choosing the safest path up the rocks. Cole followed with the woman in his arms. The climb was slow and brutal. Wet stones shifted under his boots, and dead leaves hid every wrong step. His shoulders burned, but he did not stop. Halfway up, an old memory struck him, a wounded soldier in his arms, smoke in the air, a rescue that came too late. Cole pushed the memory down and kept climbing. Not this time. Near the top of the ridge, the engine returned. Cole lowered himself behind a fallen tree, holding the woman close. Ghost crouched beside him without a sound. The puppy hid near Cole's leg, shaking. The black pickup rolled along the ridge again, slower than before. It stopped near the tire tracks. Cole could not see the driver, but he felt the threat in that silence. After several long seconds, the truck moved on. Cole waited until the sound faded. Then he rose and kept walking. Rain began falling as Ashwood Creek finally appeared through the trees. The woman stirred once against his chest and whispered, "Chimera." Cole looked down at her. "You still have it," he said. "I won't let it go." The puppy walked beside him, lifting her nose every few steps to touch the woman's hand. And Cole understood something simple and powerful. That tiny dog had crossed the forest alone with a bloody glove in her mouth, searching for someone who would listen. Somehow she had found him. Break time = 0.5s. Cole Mercer reached Ashwood Creek Community Hospital just as the morning rain began to fall harder against the windows. It was a small hospital on the edge of town, the kind of place with one emergency entrance, 2 ambulances, and nurses who knew most patients by name. By the time Cole stepped through the sliding doors with the injured woman in his arms, his jacket was soaked, his boots were muddy, and the little golden retriever puppy was still pressed close to his leg like a shadow made of fear. A nurse hurried toward him from behind the front desk. Her name tag read Mara Collins. She was a 46-year-old emergency nurse who had worked in Ashwood Creek for nearly 20 years, calm in the way people became calm only after seeing too many frightened families. "What happened?" she asked, already waving for help. "Found her under Raven Cliff," Cole said. "Head injury, possible broken leg. Weak pulse. She's been out in the cold." Mara's face changed at once. Trauma room now. Two orderlies rushed forward with a stretcher. One of them, a young hospital aide named Peter Nolan, 24 years old and still new enough to look nervous, helped Cole lower the woman carefully. The moment her body left Cole's arms, the puppy cried and tried to climb onto the stretcher. Cole caught her gently before she could leap. "Easy, they're helping her." The puppy twisted in his grip, eyes locked on the woman as the staff rolled her through the hallway. Ghost moved beside Cole without being told. The old German shepherd did not bark, but his eyes followed every person who came too close. Dr. Samuel Whitaker arrived moments later. He was a 58-year-old town physician who handled emergencies, broken bones, winter accidents, and nearly every hard morning Ashwood Creek had ever known. He took one look at the woman and began giving orders. "Get imaging ready, check her breathing, watch the pressure, and someone clean that wound." Before the trauma room doors closed, Cole saw one detail clearly. The woman still had the camera strap wrapped around her hand. Even unconscious, she had not let it go. Mara looked at Cole. "You know her?" "No." "Then why was she out there?" Cole glanced at the puppy trembling in his arms. "She sent someone for help." Mara followed his gaze and softened. "That little thing?" Cole nodded, and Ghost confirmed it. The nurse looked down at Ghost, then at Cole again. In a town like Ashwood Creek, people knew pieces of his story even when he never told them. They knew he had served overseas. They knew Ghost had been a military K-9. They knew Cole Mercer did not bring trouble to town unless trouble had already found him. The next hours passed slowly. Cole remained in the hallway outside the room, still wearing his wet jacket. The puppy finally stopped struggling and curled beneath his chair, but she never slept for long. Every few minutes she lifted her head toward the trauma room door and whimpered. Ghost lay beside the chair, his body still, his eyes open. By afternoon, Sheriff Dale Morrison arrived. He was a 52-year-old local sheriff with a broad voice and the tired face of a man who had spent years trying to keep a small town peaceful. Cole told him only what he knew. The glove, the tracking, the broken bike, the black pickup near Raven Cliff, and the camera in the woman's hand. Sheriff Morrison listened carefully, then wrote everything down. "You think someone pushed her?" "I think she was running from someone," Cole said. The sheriff looked toward the hospital room. "If she wakes up, I need to speak with her." "If she wakes up," Cole repeated quietly. That word stayed with him one day past. Then nearly another, the woman remained unconscious, but stable. The hospital staff learned her name from a press ID found inside her jacket pocket. Elena Brooks, 30 years old, an investigative journalist who worked independently after leaving a larger newspaper in Portland. No one had reported her missing yet, which bothered Cole more than he admitted. The puppy never left her room after Mara finally allowed it. She slept on a folded blanket beside the bed, her little nose pointed toward Elena's hand. Ghost took the doorway as his post, quiet as a stone guardian from some old legend. On the second evening, rain tapped softly against the glass while Cole stood near the window, arms crossed. He had not gone home. Mara had offered him coffee so many times that he had stopped refusing. The room smelled of antiseptic, wet dog fur, and weak hospital tea. Then Elena moved. At first, it was only her fingers. The puppy lifted her head instantly. Cole turned from the window. Elena's eyelids fluttered. Her breathing quickened. She opened her eyes slowly, confused by the white ceiling, the machines, and the dim light beside her bed. "Easy," Cole said, stepping closer. "You're in Ashwood Creek Hospital." Her eyes shifted toward him, unfocused at first. Fear crossed her face, then pain. Her lips parted. "Sonny," she whispered. "Where's Sonny?" The puppy exploded upward from the blanket with a sharp cry. She scrambled onto the lower edge of the bed before Cole could stop her, careful but desperate, tail trembling with joy. Elena saw her and broke. Tears filled her eyes so quickly it looked as if the fear inside her had finally found a way out. "Sonny," she breathed, reaching with weak fingers. So that was the puppy's name. Sunny pressed her little body against Elena's arm and whined, licking her hand again and again. Elena cried harder but quietly, as if even grief had to be gentle because her body was still too wounded to hold much of it. Ghost stood from the doorway and stepped closer. He did not crowd the bed. He only watched, steady and calm. Elena looked from Sunny to Ghost, then to Cole. "You followed her." Cole nodded. "She brought us your glove." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. "I thought she was gone." "She wasn't," Cole said. "She wouldn't give up." Elena swallowed with difficulty. Her voice remained weak, but the fear in it sharpened. "My fall wasn't an accident." Cole's expression hardened. Mara, who had entered quietly to check the monitor, paused near the bed. Elena turned her eyes toward Cole. "I found something in Graypine Forest, something hidden. I took pictures." "The camera?" Cole asked. Her fingers moved toward the bedside table where the damaged camera now sat inside a clear evidence bag. Relief crossed her face. "You saved it." "You saved it," Cole corrected. "You wouldn't let go." Elena stared at the camera as if it were heavier than the whole room. "There are people in this town who don't want those pictures seen, powerful people." Cole said nothing, but Ghost's ears lifted slightly. Elena's voice dropped lower. "If they know I'm alive, they'll come back." The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the window like small warning knocks. Mara stepped closer, suddenly uneasy. "Who, Elena?" Elena looked toward the dark glass. Before she could answer, Ghost stood so fast his claws clicked against the floor. The old K9 faced the window. A low growl rose from his chest. Cole turned at once. Outside, beyond the rain, streaked glass. A dark figure stood beneath the hospital side, awning motionless in the storm, looking directly into Elena's room. Then the figure stepped backward into the rain and disappeared. Break time =0.5s. The next morning, Ashwood Creek Community Hospital felt quieter than it had the night before, but the fear inside Elena Brooks had not faded. Rain still moved against the windows in thin silver lines, and the room smelled faintly of coffee, antiseptic, and wet autumn air. Elena, a 30-year-old investigative journalist, sat propped against her pillows with a bandage near her temple, and one arm resting carefully beside Sunny. The little golden retriever puppy had finally fallen asleep against her blanket, but even in sleep, her tiny paw touched Elena's wrist, as if she needed proof that her person was still there. Cole Mercer stood near the window with Ghost at his side. Cole, a 39-year-old former Special Forces soldier, had not slept more than an hour since carrying Elena out of Raven Cliff. Ghost, his 8-year-old retired military K9, lay between the hospital bed and the door, calm but watchful. Since the shadow appeared outside the window the night before, the old German shepherd had not allowed any stranger to enter without first lifting his head. Elena looked at Cole for a long moment before speaking. "The place I found is not supposed to exist." Cole turned from the window. "The place in Graypine Forest?" She nodded slowly. "A hidden discharge line, a pipe running under the brush near Red Hollow River. It comes from Iron Vale Processing Plant." Cole knew the name. Everyone in Ashwood Creek knew it. Iron Vale was the biggest employer in town. The plant sat north of the river and processed industrial materials for construction companies across the state. Its owner, Victor Hale, was a 61-year-old businessman known for donating to schools, sponsoring town events, and smiling in every newspaper photo like a man carved out of money and confidence. Elena's voice stayed low. "Victor Hale has been dumping toxic waste into Red Hollow River for years. Not once, not by accident. For years." Cole said nothing at first. The words settled in the room like cold smoke. Elena reached carefully toward the damaged camera on the bedside table. "I started getting tips 3 months ago, dead fish along the riverbank, a strange smell near the old logging road, people getting rashes after touching the water. But every time someone complained, the story disappeared." "Disappeared how?" Cole asked. Local reporters dropped it. Inspectors said the water was safe. The mayor called it seasonal runoff. Elena's expression tightened. "Then I found out why. Hale has been paying people to stay quiet." Cole looked toward Ghost. The old dog's ears had lifted slightly at the tension in Elena's voice. She continued. "Mayor Clifford Barnes, 55 years old, has been protecting him. So have at least 2 environmental inspectors. They signed reports saying Iron Vale passed every safety review, but those reports were false." Cole knew Mayor Barnes too. A smiling local politician with polished speeches, and a habit of shaking hands like every camera loved him. "You have proof." "I had enough to keep digging," Elena said. "Then I found the pipe." Sunny stirred at her side and opened her eyes. The puppy crawled closer to Elena's hand, and Ghost rose quietly, stepping nearer to the bed. He lowered his nose near Sunny as if checking that she was all right. Sunny leaned into him without fear. It was strange to see the old war dog become so gentle with something so small, but Cole understood it. Ghost had always protected what could not protect itself. Elena watched them and softened for the first time that morning. "She ran after me when I left the cabin that day. I tried to send her back, but she wouldn't listen. Stubborn little thing." Cole glanced at the puppy. "Good thing she didn't." Elena gave a faint, tired smile. "She's the reason I'm alive." A knock came at the door. Nurse Mara Collins, the 46-year-old emergency nurse who had helped save Elena, stepped inside with a tray and a concerned look. "Doctor says you need rest, not another investigation." Elena lowered her eyes like a child caught doing something wrong. "I know." Mara set the tray down. "And yet I can hear the word toxic from the hallway." Cole almost smiled. Mara glanced at him. "You too, Mr. Mercer. You look like you've been standing guard over a castle for 2 nights. Ghost huffed softly from the floor. "3 guards, Mara corrected, looking at Ghost and Sunny. "Fine, a very serious castle." The small humor eased the room for a breath. Then Elena looked back at Cole and the weight returned. "There's a boy named Noah Price," she said. "He's 9. His mother contacted me after he developed a terrible rash from swimming near Red Hollow Bend. Doctors told her it was an allergic reaction, but she said half the fish in that area were dead the same week." Cole's expression hardened. "And no one listened." "She tried. The town paper refused to run the story. Said there wasn't enough evidence. Then someone from the mayor's office called her and suggested she stop making public accusations." Cole looked out the window toward the gray morning beyond the glass. Ashwood Creek had always seemed peaceful from a distance. Quiet streets, small shops, families at the lake on summer evenings. But peace built on silence was not peace. It was just fear wearing a clean shirt. Elena took a slow breath. "The photos in that camera show the pipe. They show the markings on the metal. They show waste flowing into the river. But I need someone to confirm the location before Hale's people remove it." Cole already knew what she was asking, even before she said it. "You want me to go back? I don't want to ask you," Elena said. "But I don't trust anyone else yet." Cole looked at Ghost. The old K9 stood beside Sunny now, his body slightly angled between the puppy and the door. Tired or not, Ghost was ready. Cole turned back to Elena. "I'll go." Elena's eyes filled with both relief and worry. "You don't have to do this alone." "I won't be alone." Ghost lifted his head at the sound of Cole's voice. Sunny suddenly stood on the bed, tail stiff, ears perked. She looked from Elena to Cole, then tried to climb down. "No," Elena said gently. "Sunny, you stay." The puppy ignored her and gave a small determined bark. Cole raised an eyebrow. "She has strong opinions." Elena sighed. "She always has." Sunny barked again, then looked at Ghost as if asking him to support her case. Ghost stepped closer to Cole, then glanced back at the puppy. The old dog did not bark. He simply waited. Cole understood the message. "She's coming," he said. Elena looked alarmed. "Cole, she's just a puppy. She found me. She found you. And Ghost won't let anything near her." Ghost moved beside Sunny like a gray, muzzled guardian accepting a sacred duty. Sunny leaned against his front leg, suddenly proud of herself. Elena looked at them, then at Cole. Something quiet passed between them. Not romance yet, but trust beginning to breathe. "Be careful," she said. Cole picked up the camera bag and checked the memory card inside. "I'll get your proof." Elena's voice softened. "And Cole," he paused at the door. "If they're willing to hurt me for those pictures, they'll be willing to hurt you too." Cole looked at Ghost, then down at Sunny, who stood ready beside the old K9 as if she were much larger than she was. "I know," he said. "That's why we're going before they know we're coming." And with that, Cole Mercer, Ghost, and Sunny left the hospital, heading back toward Graypine Forest and the hidden wound beneath its trees. Break time =sign 0.5s. Rain returned to Graypine Forest before Cole Mercer reached the old logging trail. It fell softly at first, brushing the pine needles like a warning, then gathered into a steady curtain that darkened the ground and turned the moss. Covered rocks slicked beneath his boots. Ghost moved ahead of him with his nose low, calm and focused, despite the wet cold. Sunny stayed close between them, her small golden body almost disappearing in the gray light whenever she passed through tall ferns. She had no idea how small she looked in that forest, but she carried herself like she had already survived something larger than fear. Cole kept Elena's damaged camera inside a waterproof pouch beneath his jacket. Before leaving the hospital, Elena had drawn him a rough map on the back of a medical form. Her hand had shaken from weakness, but her memory had been clear. Follow the old logging road. Cross the broken footbridge. Look for the dead cedars near Red Hollow River. The pipe was hidden behind them, buried beneath brush and stones as if the forest itself had been forced to lie. Ghost stopped near the first bend of the logging trail and lifted his head. His nose worked slowly, then his body stiffened. It was not the scent from the glove this time. This was sharper, chemical, bitter enough that even Cole noticed it through the rain. Ghost gave a low breath and moved off the trail toward a wall of ferns. Find it, Cole whispered. Ghost pushed through the brush with careful discipline. Sunny followed, then paused when a branch snapped behind her. Ghost immediately turned back and placed himself between the puppy and the sound. There was nothing there, only rain knocking loose drops from the trees. But the old K9 waited until Sunny moved again. Cole saw it and felt something warm pass through the cold morning. Ghost had guarded soldiers, officers, and strangers. Now he guarded a puppy as if she were part of his old unit. The smell grew stronger near a cluster of dead cedars. Their trunks stood gray and bare, surrounded by healthy pines, a strange ring of quiet sickness in the middle of the forest. Cole crouched and touched the soil. It was damp, dark, and stained with an oily film that shimmered faintly in the rainwater. A few feet away, Red Hollow River moved between the rocks, but the water near the bank looked wrong. It was too dark, too heavy, and it carried a faint black trail downstream. Ghost suddenly pushed his nose beneath a mat of vines and gave one short bark. Cole moved closer and pulled the vines aside. There it was. A huge steel pipe lay hidden beneath moss, covered stones and thick brush. Someone had worked hard to disguise it. The outer metal had been painted brown and green, matching the forest floor. Branches had been arranged over the mouth, but beneath that false skin, thick black wastewater poured steadily into the river. Cole stared at it in silence. Elena had been right. He took out the camera and began photographing everything. The pipe, the markings on the steel, the direction of the flow, the dead cedars, the oily soil, the dark water slipping into Red Hollow River like poison entering a vein. He worked quickly but carefully, making sure each image was clear. Then he used his own phone to record video, speaking in a low voice to mark the location, the date, and what he was seeing. Sunny stood near the riverbank and whined. She sniffed the water, then sneezed and backed away. Ghost stepped in front of her again, gently forcing her farther from the river. "Good call," Cole said. "Neither of you touch that." When he finished, he checked the camera screen. The files were there. The proof was real. For the first time since Elena had opened her eyes in the hospital, Cole felt the case shift from fear into action. Then Ghost growled, "Low, controlled danger." Cole froze. The rain hit his shoulders. The river moved behind him. Slowly, he slid the camera back into the pouch and turned. 3 men stepped out from the trees near the logging trail. They wore dark rain jackets and work boots, the kind of men who wanted to look like laborers but moved like hired muscle. The oldest one appeared about 45, broad, shouldered, with a hard face and a radio clipped to his jacket. The second was around 35, tall and restless, carrying a metal flashlight like a club. The youngest looked about 28, nervous but trying to hide it behind a cold stare. Cole did not know their names, but he knew their purpose before anyone spoke. The oldest man looked at the pouch under Cole's jacket. "You took something that doesn't belong to you." Cole kept his voice even. "Funny, I was thinking the same thing about the river." The tall man took a step forward, hand over the camera. Ghost moved at the same time, placing himself between Cole and the men. Rain ran down his dark muzzle. His growl stayed low, not wild, not angry, but ready. Sunny backed behind Cole's boot, trembling. Cole did not reach for the pouch. "You work for Victor Hale?" The oldest man's expression tightened just enough to answer. Cole nodded. "That's what I thought." The tall man lunged first. Cole stepped aside, caught the man's wrist, and used the forward momentum to send him crashing into the wet ground. Ghost moved at the second attacker before he could reach Cole, knocking him back with a hard strike of his body and a warning snap near the man's sleeve. The man shouted and stumbled into the brush. The oldest man rushed toward Cole from the left. Cole turned, blocked the swing, and drove him backward against a tree. It was not like the old battlefield, not exactly. There were no explosions, no smoke, no shouting over radios, but for one sharp moment, Cole felt the old memory claw at him again. A wounded friend, a hill he could not cross fast enough, a rescue that ended too late. This time, he did not freeze. He moved. Cole disarmed the oldest man and forced him down into the mud behind him. The tall man rose again and grabbed a fallen branch. Cole did not see him in time, Sonny did. The little golden retriever shot forward with a cry and bit the man's hand before he could swing. It was not a powerful bite, not from a puppy that small, but it startled him long enough for Ghost to turn and drive him back. The man lost his footing on the wet stones and fell hard beside the brush. Ghost yelped once. Cole's heart dropped. The second attacker had kicked toward Ghost's side during the struggle. The old K9 stayed standing, but his front leg shook slightly. Cole's face changed. The fight ended quickly after that. He moved with controlled force, fast and precise, until all three men were on the ground, breathing hard, muddy, and unable to continue. He took their radios, moved them out of reach, and secured their hands with zip ties from his field kit. Ghost limped toward him. Cole knelt immediately. Easy, boy. The injury was not deep, but the old dog had taken a hard blow near the shoulder. Cole touched the fur gently, and Ghost leaned into him with quiet trust. Sonny pressed herself against Ghost's front leg and whimpered, licking at his wet fur as if trying to heal him by love alone. Cole exhaled slowly. You're both impossible. His phone vibrated. A message appeared from Officer Rachel Quinn, a 27-year-old Ashwood Creek police officer who had quietly agreed to help after Sheriff Morrison warned that the mayor's office could not be trusted. Cole had sent her the first images through a secure link before the ambush began. Got them, sending copies to state police. Now, keep moving. Do not return by the main road. Cole looked toward the captured men, then toward the hidden pipe still pouring darkness into Red Hollow River. Elena's proof was safe. At the hospital, Elena would be waiting, probably staring at the rain and pretending not to worry. Cole thought of her tired eyes, her courage, and the way her voice softened whenever Sonny climbed against her hand. Something inside him shifted then, not like thunder, more like the first light through trees after a long night. He stood, picked up the camera, and looked at Ghost. We're going home another way. Ghost limped, but he followed. Sonny stayed close beside him, no longer just a frightened puppy, but a small golden spark moving through the rain. Behind them, the poisoned river kept running. Ahead of them, the truth finally had somewhere to go. Break time equal sign. 0.5s. By the time the truth reached the state police, Ashwood Creek could no longer pretend it was only a quiet town beside a pretty river. The photographs from Elena Brooks's camera showed the hidden pipe beneath the dead cedars. Cole Mercer's video showed the thick black wastewater spilling into Red Hollow River. Officer Rachel Quinn's report connected the attack in Graypine Forest to the men hired by Victor Hale. And when investigators arrived with search warrants, the clean public face of Iron Vale Processing Plant began to crack. Victor Hale, the 61-year-old owner of Iron Vale, was arrested outside his glass office at the plant, while reporters gathered near the front gate. For years, he had smiled at charity dinners, funded school banners, and called himself a friend of Ashwood Creek. But behind the speeches and donations, his company had poisoned the river that fed the town's farms, parks, and wells. Mayor Clifford Barnes, 55 years old and once the most powerful politician in Ashwood Creek, was taken from town hall the same afternoon. He did not smile for the cameras that day. 2 environmental inspectors were also charged for signing false safety reports. The 3 men who attacked Cole in Graypine Forest gave statements after investigators found payment records, linking them to Hale's security office. The town reacted first with shock, then anger, then a silence heavier than both. People stood along Red Hollow River and looked at the dark stains near the bank as if seeing their home for the first time. Mothers held children closer. Older fishermen stared at the water without casting a line. Some residents apologized to those who had spoken up before and been ignored. Among them was Noah Price, a 9-year-old boy who had suffered a painful skin condition after swimming near Red Hollow Bend. His mother, Hannah Price, a 34-year-old waitress and single parent, had warned people for months that the river was making children sick. Few had believed her. When Elena's story broke, Hannah did not celebrate. She simply stood beside the river with one hand on her son's shoulder and whispered, "Now they know." Iron Vale Processing Plant was shut down within days. State crews sealed the illegal pipe, and began removing contaminated soil near the riverbank. Environmental workers placed warning signs along the water and started the long, careful work of healing what greed had damaged. Red Hollow River did not become clean overnight. Rivers, like hearts, needed time to recover, but slowly the oily film faded from the shallows. The smell weakened. Birds returned to the banks. Weeks later, children were still not allowed near the water, but for the first time in years, people believed the river had a future. Elena Brooks wrote the biggest article of her life from a small desk near the window of Cole's cabin. She was still recovering, but her hands were steady when she typed the title: A Retired Soldier, an Aging K9, and the Golden Puppy Who Refused to Give Up. The article spread far beyond Ashwood Creek. People across Oregon read about the hidden pipe, the bribed officials, the wounded journalist, the veteran who followed a puppy into the fog, and the retired K9 who still knew how to protect the innocent. Cole hated the attention. Ghost handled it better. At a town ceremony 3 months later, Sheriff Dale Morrison stood in front of the courthouse and presented Ghost with a small medal for courage and service. Ghost, now walking with a slight limp but still dignified, sat beside Cole with the patience of a soldier who had survived much louder ceremonies. Sonny, on the other hand, nearly ruined the moment by trying to chew the ribbon before Mara Collins gently distracted her with a biscuit from her coat pocket. The crowd laughed. Cole laughed too, quietly, but Elena heard it. That sound mattered to her more than the applause. After the ceremony, Cole used part of a community grant and some donated land near Blackstone Lake to open a small rescue dog training center. He named it Graypine Search and Rescue. It was not large, only a converted barn, a fenced field, and a few training trails through the woods. But it became a place where children learned how dogs could help find the lost, comfort the hurt, and listen to fears people could not say out loud. Ghost became the calm old teacher. He no longer ran fast, but he showed younger dogs how to wait, how to listen, and how to trust a handler's silence. Sonny became the unofficial symbol of the center. She greeted everyone like a golden spark with paws, always carrying something in her mouth: a training rope, a glove, a fallen leaf, or once, Cole's missing sock, which she delivered proudly to a group of school children as if it were evidence in a very serious case. Elena moved into a small rental house near Cole's cabin before winter. She said it was because the location was quiet and close to her work. Cole said nothing, but he fixed the loose porch step before she even asked. Over time, coffee at the hospital became coffee at the cabin. Short conversations became long evening talks. Elena learned that Cole was not cold, he was careful. Cole learned that Elena was not fearless. She was afraid often, but she walked forward anyway. By late autumn, Blackstone Lake Park turned gold beneath the maple trees. The air was crisp, and the late afternoon sun poured through the red leaves like warm honey. Cole and Elena walked along the lakeside path hand in hand, neither rushing, neither needing to explain what had grown between them. Ghost walked calmly beside Cole, slower than before but peaceful. Sonny bounded ahead, chasing leaves that spun in the wind, her golden fur bright against the fading light. For the first time in many years, Cole did not feel like a man passing through life with one foot still trapped in the past. He had a town that trusted him, a mission that healed instead of haunted, a woman who understood silence, an old dog who had never left his side, and a puppy who had carried hope through the fog. Near the end of the path, Sonny suddenly vanished behind a bench. A moment later, she returned with something dangling from her mouth. An old glove. Not the bloody one from that terrible morning, but a clean training glove from Cole's rescue center. Sonny trotted proudly toward Cole and Elena, tail wagging like she had once again solved the world's greatest mystery. Elena laughed first, then Cole did too. Ghost gave a soft huff, as if the old K9 had seen enough nonsense for one lifetime. The sun lowered over Blackstone Lake, turning the water gold. Cole took the glove from Sonny and looked at Elena. No one said much. They did not need to. Some stories ended with justice. Some ended with healing. This one ended with both, beside a quiet lake, beneath falling autumn leaves, where a lonely veteran finally understood that home was not always a place waiting for you. Sometimes it was a hand holding yours, an old dog walking beside you, and a small golden puppy running ahead into the light. Break time =, 0.5s. The lesson from this story is that sometimes the smallest hearts carry the greatest courage. Sonny was only a puppy. She could not speak, explain, or ask for help in words. But through loyalty and love, she carried a bloody glove through the fog and led Cole and Ghost to someone who desperately needed saving. Cole reminds us that wounded people are not broken beyond repair. He had lived with the pain of war and the weight of memories he could not forget. But when life asked him to stand up again, he did. Sometimes our deepest wounds can become the very place where compassion begins. Ghost shows us the beauty of quiet loyalty. Even as an aging K9, he still knew when to protect, when to trust, and when to guide others through danger. Love does not always make noise. Sometimes it simply stands beside us when we are afraid. Elena's courage teaches us that truth matters. Speaking up can be frightening, especially when powerful people want silence. But one brave voice can save a river, a town, and countless lives. In the end, this story reminds us that family is not always born from blood. Sometimes it begins with a lost puppy, an old dog, a lonely veteran, and one act of kindness that changes everything. So if you ever see someone silently asking for help, do not look away. A small act of compassion may become the miracle they have been waiting for.